Hi, are you an organisation that is looking for a comprehensive DEI program that will help increase inclusion and a sense of belonging at your place of work? Well, if that's the case, then the Empathy to Equity Blueprint might be just what you're looking for. Let's take a look at it in a little bit more detail. I put together the Empathy to Equity Blueprint to give people multiple options depending on where they are on their DEI journey. So you may just be starting off, or you're looking to get some more support within your organization for this important work. So empathy is a fantastic place to start. So if you look at this first column here, empathy at work, I have keynotes and workshops. And the importance of empathy, obviously it's around listening, it's around understanding. And in addition to that, if you have people who are resistant to DEI programs, it's very hard for people to say that empathy isn't a useful skill for them to have. So if you can start out by helping people become more empathetic, then the idea is that they will then become more open and more receptive to other areas of DEI. So understanding of unconscious bias, looking at microaggressions and understanding the importance of those and how they can be stopped in the workplace, and being a bystander and an ally and so on. So empathy is a really great place to start with this. And I have keynotes, workshops for leaders and also for the larger organization. And in addition, sessions for the senior leadership team. Sometimes companies want to have a session for perhaps the top 10, 15, 20 leaders in the organization before they roll out a wider DEI program. So that's empathy in the workplace. Next, of course, is eliminating bias. And a lot of places have CBT training, sort of tick box exercises on unconscious bias, but I believe that it's much more important to have a more engaging and interactive training on this. And that's why I have sessions that cover unconscious bias, what it is, how does it begin, how does it manifest itself, and also with stories. So it's not just understanding at a psychological level how unconscious bias can crop up, but also hearing about the impact of it. And then in addition to that, we want to look at how we can break bias. So it's not really just enough to say, oh, well, I understand that most people are biased. We've got to find ways that we can break or block the bias. And so I have sessions for leaders and also for the general workforce on how we can block and break unconscious bias. Then moving on, equity and inclusion. I have a keynote, which is called Inclusive Leadership for the Post-COVID Workplace. And of course, as we try and get workplaces back to normal, things aren't the same as they were 18 months ago. And it's important to create open workplaces where people feel they can express their needs, whether they're people that want to have a sort of hybrid workplace or people are being brought back into the office. We've got to really listen to people and understand some of the fears that they have and some of their concerns so that we can create a workplace where people feel that they are happy to come to, whether they are still working from home or whether they're being brought back to the office. In addition to that, other sessions under this area, equity and inclusion, include being fair. How do we build equity and belonging into the employee life cycle? And in addition to that, of course, looking at microaggressions, bystander training, looking at some of the reasons why microaggressions crop up at work and how we can stamp them out, whether we are from an underrepresented group or whether we are somebody who's a bystander who is keen and willing to support those around you. And then finally, we have engagement, transparency, and communication. And we want to make sure that if we are trying to create a workplace of belonging, we want to make sure that people are engaged. And that starts with feedback. It starts with people being given fair feedback, effective feedback, feedback where they are involved in the feedback process. It's not just once or twice a year where they get their performance feedback, but it's developmental. So people really do feel that they're being invited to grow with the organization. In addition to that, we have sessions on difficult conversations, because there are many difficult conversations that we have to have at work. And I love sharing some of my best favorite frameworks to make these easier to have, so that we typically, what can happen is if there's a difficult conversation and we avoid it, it can be blown out of proportion even and fester into something that's far worse. So we want to nip that in the bud. So we need to equip people so that they can have these conversations without feeling they've got to avoid them. And in addition to that, communication skills, so that teams can work effectively and people aren't feeling stifled or ignored in meetings. And then in addition to that, how do we get what we want? You may have underrepresented groups who feel that they're not really being given a fair crack at the whip, or fair opportunities at work. So how do we equip people to ask for what they want and be a little bit bolder about their needs at work? Then we have communicating your personal brand, persuasion and influence, and also virtual communication skills. Because if we continue to have these hybrid workplaces or workplaces which are entirely virtual, people need to know how they can communicate and still create those environments of a sense of teamwork, a sense of working together, not feeling too isolated. So that's at a very high level, the empathy to equity blueprint. And you can choose to put in place the entire blueprint and select one or more talks from each of those different areas. Or you may just feel, okay, right now our focus is on empathy, or right now our focus is on communication. So let's start there. Whatever it is that you are interested in from this program, please do feel free to get in touch or to download the entire blueprint. It's a 3-page overview, so feel free to download that. And then if you see something that you're interested in, feel free to get in touch. Maybe we can have a call, a Zoom call, so book a spot on my calendar, or just drop me an email. I look forward to hearing from you.